guys, it is Mr. Dave, and I am with the RayKitty Creation Workshop, and you are watching the RayKitty Science Project. Thanks for watching. We've got some fun stuff that we're going to be doing here today that is really gross. Okay, so this one is really gross. Now, if you saw our last episode where I attempted to chase bugs around on my microscope there, we're going to be doing the same thing today, but even on a smaller scale. So as far as what you would need to do today's, you would probably need a microscope, where with the bugs that we found in our yard, in our little backyard exploring, you wouldn't really need a microscope for. For today's, we're actually going to be looking at little bitty microscopic creatures, okay? So last time I had all kinds of bins out here, and we were looking at bugs and things, and we were looking at the bugs under the microscopes. But today, all of the bugs that we're going to be looking at are in here. Yeah, in this little area of mass down at the bottom of my syringe, all of the little creatures we're going to be looking at today are in there. Okay, this is microbiology. Now, I am not a microbiologist. My brother Mikey, he is a microbiologist. Mike, I know you watch all these. I appreciate that. So when you tell me later, dude, that's not what that was, that's okay. So if you guys catch me, like I said, I'm not a microbiologist. I just like looking at the creepy crawlies. Mike, yeah, you can tell me, dude, I know what that was later when I see something and I just get grossed out by it. But we're going to be looking at some things through this microscope. This water here, I did retrieve from my aquarium at home. I have a mature aquarium, and that is when I've got a nice little, micro organism like culture down at the bottom there. And so the guys that we'll see in here, we'll see a lot of different little microorganisms. Now, this is a lot of fun. As I said in the last one, if you watched it, I want to kind of reiterate, you don't need a big fancy microscope. Get yourself any microscope you can afford. Even the little cheap ones nowadays that seem like toy microscopes will do a great job, and you will be able to see all of the things that we're checking out today with the cheapest microscope you can find, okay? So if you can scrape your pennies together and get a little bitty microscope, if you got lots of money, get a big fancy one, that's even more awesome. But we're gonna be looking at, this is just a sheet I printed off the internet, and these are a lot of the little microorganisms that you would find in, I printed a whole bunch of them, but these are just ones that you would find in normal pond water. Okay, I have a freshwater aquarium, so the creatures that we're going to be looking at are from a freshwater aquarium. I don't think we'll see any water bears. Boy, I would love that, but I don't think we'll see the tardigrades there, but we'll see some of these other creatures. And so if you have it, we won't be referencing that too much, but just if you are kind of exploring into microbiology, micro meaning smaller than you can see with the naked or regular with your eyeballs, that means it's micro. Okay, now I've got a little bug over here on this one. This is a tiny little gnat, right? It's tiny, but it's not micro. Okay, this is just a little bitty bug over here. So this is a little bug that we caught on there. Now it's too small to normally see the features and things on there, but it wouldn't be considered microbiology. Okay, these other bugs like we were checking out last week, we may see some creatures that look a lot, I'll put a white background on that so we can see it a little bit better there. We may see some creatures that look like this in the water, okay? There are sometimes little fleas and things like that in the water, and I try to usually kind of keep those to a minimum, but you can see things that look like some of your larger insects in the water. Okay, they're just a lot smaller, tinier micro versions. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and kind of just get right into it so we can kind of go hunting for some of these creatures. Now, I have two microscopes set up. This one here has got a much lower magnification than this one over here. I have a drop of water underneath this one here. And you can kind of just, let's see if we move it around a little bit. This is just tap water that I got right from the sink in the studio here. So hopefully I don't see any big old creepy crawlies in there. If I do, that is going to really change where I fill my water bottle. But this guy here, yeah, see, so there you really won't see too much. The little thing that's floating on there probably wasn't even from the water. That was probably just something that was on my slide, a little fiber or something like that. But I just did that to kind of show you the difference in what we're looking at in a little droplet there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to load 2 slides. Now normally when you are looking for something underneath a microscope and you're doing a liquid, you will put a little slide cover on there. Now I'm not going to do that today. And the reason for that is I want that kind of, I want to be able to see things swimming above and below. The reason you do that is it gives you a little bit less wiggle. But when we're doing it here, you are going to see a little bit of wiggle, and I will have to kind of dial it up and down. But that's so we can kind of see more of those creatures as they're swimming above and below each other. Okay. Now, it is amazing. I want to kind of just get like a close-up on just this, on what we're looking at here. This is just, it looks like maybe like a very fine sand. There's all kinds of little microorganisms in there, but this is what it looks like in comparison to maybe my finger, okay? So that's just for scale, okay? Now I know I have short, fat fingers, but this is for scale what we're looking at. And I am going to put a single drop. I'm actually going to go for the smallest drop I can to put on my slide here, okay? So I'm going to put a little bitty drop on my slide. Whoop, that's a massive drop. Okay, so we're going to look at lots of it. And I'm going to put another drop on this slide. Let's see, on this slide right here. And I'll see if I can go a little smaller because we're going to go a little bit finer on that one. There you go. A nice smaller drop on that one. Okay, so I have 2 slides. I'm going to put one on each microscope. We're going to start out with this one here that doesn't have quite the magnification of the other one. And that way we can just kind of find some things and see what is living inside of this drop of water. Okay, now this drop just kind of for scale. If you look, again, this is my finger here. So this drop is about the size of my pinky nail. Okay, so we're going to look at this drop of water. And I'm going to spread it out just a little bit with my stick. And I'm going to just kind of move that water around a little bit so we can kind of see as those little microorganisms are swimming around in there. Now, when you watch, if you remember back like a million years ago when you just watched the intro to this, this episode, you saw that weird little thing that was crawling around. We're probably going to see some of those guys in here. Okay, and that is from this here. Now, with our microscope, this microscope here we're looking at, depending on kind of with the screen and things, I'm going to bring it up a little bit closer and we can dial it in so we can get a little better view. Okay, and so I'm going to bring it up here and I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And as we're zooming in, we're starting to see that movement. Do you see that? The more I zoom in, now I haven't even zoomed in all the way on this one here, but we can already kind of see some little things swimming around in there. Now, it's not zoomed in very much yet, so let's get a little bit closer. As we get closer, we're going to see more of those little creatures in there. I'm going to zoom in even closer. I'm going to bring this down just a hair. And let's see, we're going to focus it up and let's see what we can see in there when we really zoom it in, okay? Now, we're seeing some of these little bitty guys. I'm going to use my little stick here. I'll point on the screen usually. What I want to show you just kind of for reference is this is a lead from a mechanical pencil, just so we can see the size, okay? So I'm going to put that lead. That's the size of the lead from a pencil, okay? Just so you have it for reference. Now, on this one here, we're seeing a little bit of movement. Now, as I quit messing with it, those critters, when that water really kind of starts, when I'm wiggling it around, they'll stay still for a little bit. But now they're starting to kind of show up and they're starting to wiggle around in there. Now, we're seeing a little bit of movement, but let's kind of move around here and see what else we can find in there. So these guys here, getting a little bit. I'm going to zoom in just a little more. There we go. Now we can see these little guys. We see some guys swimming here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this one up, and we're going to come over to this one over here, and we're going to see what they're looking like a little bit closer or a little bit more zoomed in. Okay, so I'm going to come over here. Now this one here has got a lot stronger, so I'm gonna like just keep an eye on this one while we're dialing this one in, because I am gonna be going back and forth as we're seeing them kind of show up there. So let me find my little droplet. Here we are, and we're gonna zoom in there. Okay. And then we're going to dial it in and see. Now I see something moving in there already. So let me see if I can get it in focus. Gross. Let me see, I think I got that. There we go. Okay. And silence. See what we can see over here while I'm zooming in on this one. See if we see anything crawling around in there while I find this one here. I'm going to switch to my other lens real quick. Okay. All right, so this guy here, we'll see if we see anything crawling around in this one. Now what we have here, what we can already see is this here, and I'll point with this so I'm not interrupting it with my finger, but this right here, we can see all of those little like algae in there. Now that motion that we see, just that kind of movement, that general movement, that's really just from that water kind of moving around a little bit. But we can see these little round guys here. Now, something else is starting to move it around. So I have a feeling something's going to go crawling across there any second now. This one here, I'll see if I can move it and find a couple more of the little critters in there. So this one here, we've got something swimming around right here. And this one here, let's see. I'll move it just a tad. See if we can find what is causing that. So I've got a... Now what we're seeing here, how you can see different parts of that water, that was kind of what I was talking about as far as that depth of field. We'll see because of a drop doesn't seem like it's that deep, but when you're comparing it to this more powerful microscope here, then we're seeing, I'm hoping to find a critter in there. Let's see. Let me see what we got over here again for a minute. And we'll see what we can find in this one. I've got quite a few going on here. Let me get another little drop onto this one and see what we can find in there. Come back onto this guy. Okay. Now in our fish tank there that we've got, in my fish tank I've got little guys that have been living in there for a long time, and it sounds like that's something that would be a bad thing, but you want those little critters living in there because they can help with the nitrogen levels in the water, with the nitrates in the water. They can help with What is this guy here? So we've got something swimming around right there. So these little guys here that are moving, if we look on our little list there, we would see that those guys are kind of almost like a crustacean. I want to see if I can find one of those nice little worm guys, though. Let's see. So we're going to leave it still for just a sec because something is swimming around in there. Now you can see it's down just a tad. So I'll see if I can move it ever so slightly. Now this is definitely not, oh, there we go. Now the water has had time to settle, so the water is still, but we can see, I'll see if I can bring it in to where that guy is. We can see that guy munching on, oh, now look right up here. I'll get my little, there we go. So now this guy, oh, there's that little worm guy. So we can see this little worm guy that's coming through, and he was the one that was just right off screen just a couple seconds ago. So this little worm guy here is the guy that is probably waiting to get munched on by that guy. Let me see if I can dial it in just a little bit. There we go. And see if we can see that guy again, that little worm guy. Now this guy here is kind of underneath some of the material. So I'll see what I can kind of move and see if we can chase that worm guy just a little bit. That seemed to be what I was doing all of the last episode too, was chasing those critters around. So let's see. I thought this one would be a lot easier. Okay, so what we're going to look for is we saw that worm guy there. We'll see if he comes on the screen here. Now that guy, if we were to look on our little list here, that would be a roundworm, okay? So that little roundworm, we see a lot of those in here. This will show you, and this one here you can find, like I said, lots of these little things like this on the internet as far as how to identify them and that kind of thing. But this is a nice little chart for those guys, and this is that little roundworm that we saw crawling in there. Now, it's probably the same type of guy that was on that one there, but let's see. Now, see if I can find that guy or maybe another guy again. Let's see what we've got here. Now this little line here, that's just that edge of that drop as we're looking around. I've got something swimming in there. There you go. So we've got a little guy crawling around right here. We'll see if he comes to the surface, but we can see this little guy moving around and digging through that stuff there. And what they're doing is they work just like, kind of like your little millipedes and worms and things that you'll find in your yard. They're actually cleaning up that material. So those guys are helping to kind of turn the waste into material that you can use that will be profitable for the fish and things like that. There's a guy, I can see his legs right here. Let's see if we can get him on camera. Just a little bit here. Oh, there's a couple guys in there. So let's leave it here for just a sec. And see, we've got a guy right over here swimming around. I'm not getting too... They're not coming right to the surface. Now, all of these little guys that we're finding are all in that one little bitty drop of water. Now, the drop of water on here is even smaller than my pinky, okay? So this one's even smaller than we were looking at before. And all of these little critters that are living in here. Now, the other material that we're seeing is our like algae and things like that. If you were to look even closer, if you were to magnify that even greater, you would see even kind of more going on with that algae there. But these ones here at this magnification, we can kind of see our worms and all of those little microbes that are living in there. Now this one here, let's see when we've got kind of our zoomed out drop a little bit. I'm going to spread this out a little bit and see if we can see a little bit more guys in our zoomed out drop over here and see what we can see. Now, this movement here was just because I was moving it, but we've got some guys in there. Kind of spread this out a little bit. And we can see those little guys. Let me dial it in just a little bit. There you go. Now this little guy, we've got one of those little worms there. We've got a little guy here. So we're seeing a little bit more action on this side right now. So this worm here is that same like that big worm that we saw crawling around before. This is that little round worm. And he is crawling around. We see another little guy here. Maybe they're going to, oh yeah, they are. They're going to not like each other. As you can see what's going on there. This guy's already throwing down. Now in this roundworm, if you look, you can see that, well, it looks pretty transparent, but we can see in, oh, there you go. Boy, now there's something else coming. There you go. We've got quite a bit of action going on this one here. So about time. I knew they were in there. I just couldn't find them. So these guys here, they look kind of clear. And you can see inside of them those cells that you can see in there, and you can actually see the food that they're digesting, and you can see the shape and the makeup of their cells. I got another little guy going in the corner there. Yeah, see, so this one's finally kind of moving around. We have lots of those guys in there. Now, when we're looking, most of these are those roundworms that we were looking at before. It looks like that's mostly what we're seeing in this drop here. Let's see. Yeah, so maybe we'll try this slide over here and see if we can get a little closer on this slide. Yes, thank you. I appreciate our wonderful guys here at Studio 519 that are always helping out. We have a wonderful team. He's like, dude, put that on the big one. So we'll put that over here on this big one, see if we can see those guys swimming around on this one here. We see that material. And I see that little cell. Let's see if we can see those guys on this one. Of course, I'm going to put them over here, and then I'm not going to see anything. I'm going to spread it out again, just like I did before. We're going to get it a little bit thinner so we can see through that material. And then, so that was a good call. So now we're seeing a lot of movement on this one over here. Let's see if we can find them critters now. So yeah, we can see these little bitty cells here. These are actually little critters. This little guy right here is a little mite that we see. This little guy, once I'm still for a second, then they'll start moving around. Yeah, now we can see these guys moving around. Yeah, see, yeah, moving from there to there. So now that we're being still for just a minute, they're kind of like any old critter or anything like that. They don't want the next bigger thing to come along and eat them. But all of these things that we're seeing here are living organisms. All of these guys right here. Now, we're going to see if we can find some of them big worms in this one here. We see a lot of those little cells. These little guys right here. And then let's see. Once we see one of those big guys, let me move it this way real quick. Okay. I'm going to lean in just a little so I can see what's going on. And, okay. So we're going to give it just a second, and we can see this guy right here. And that's that little worm guy like we were looking at over here. Now you can see the difference in the magnification now that it is, magnified a lot more on this one here. We can actually see inside of that little guy. Okay. And of course now he's crawling off screen. Let's see, there you go. We'll see if there we go. And this guy here, and we can get him. He's right behind all of that. There you go. So we can see that little guy there. See this guy? This was that little bitty guy that we saw battling out with that other guy just a minute ago. This guy here is that same little guy. It's just in a lot larger scale there. So we'll see. There you go. Now that we're finally seeing them, now that we're about wrapped up here, we're seeing some of these guys crawling around and creepy crawling around. So we're going to leave that up for just a second. We're going to be still and we're going to watch these guys here. There we go. Now we got a lot of movement. So this is that same, those same little roundworms that we saw before, but this guy is now magnified quite a bit more. And we can see him swimming under the surface there, kind of making that spooky movie effect there. And the difference is that focal, the lens is focusing on just a different depth in the water there. And so that guy is, let's see if we can dial him in. I didn't think this one would be as much chasing, but we've got some chasing going on here. There we go. Now the little guy that you're seeing over here is actually just a little mite in that water there. Gross! And the tail of that little worm, I want to get to where, there you go. There it is. So now we can finally, okay, as we're just about wrapping it up, we can see this guy here. Yeah, you can actually see inside of him there. You can see the insides of that little worm. Now this guy is a little bit different than those roundworms, okay? This guy is this oligates there, and this guy's got little hairs on there, and then now there's another little creature coming across there. They all waited until the very end. You knew that they would do it, but yeah, they all waited till the very end. But these little guys are, all of these little guys are just in that little bitty drop of water that we got from that fish tank, and all of those guys are in that little bitty thing of material. And there's, even if you were to magnify it even more, you would see all of the extra life that's even smaller than that, that is all just in the drop of water. Now, if you don't have a fish tank, you can get water from the, don't play in the ditch, but around the ditch or in mud puddles, things like that. And you can get that water, and there will be little creatures in there that are swimming about in that. With a microscope, it's always kind of tricky trying to find everything and trying to kind of dial it in and see where it's at in there. But when you catch those little guys, there's a whole zoo of animals in that little bitty drop of water, and that is microbiology. All right, so these are the little microscopes. These are our little critters, and I am Mr. Dave. And as I say at the end of everything, remember that science shows you matter.